Hey guys, welcome to the Weekend Extra this week. Pastor Joe here with Pastor Ryan in the middle of the Good Goals, Bad God series. I have to slow down every time I say that series name. It throws me off every time. I love the concept, but can't say it. Anyway, Ryan, you talked a lot about health tonight, and I'm glad we could sit down so that you could take obvious advice from moi on these things. No, but it's a lot of fun, and this is something that we've actually had lots of conversations about over the years. It's so fun to see these things. But I think that there's always the practical question on a lot of people's minds, because there's probably some people on one extreme, like, how do I slow down a little bit and not make this like a God in my life? And there's other people who are like, I'm not paying attention at all. How do I kind of pick some of this up? They're probably asking, Ryan, how do you balance this? How do you kind of walk through this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't think I do. Is the short answer is I don't think I'm that good at this aspect. When I first came into a relationship with Christ and I came into the church, I would have said I was consumed by my health. Right, I ran track, ran cross country, like was in extraordinarily good shape, And then I came into the church, and honestly, at that point in the life of the church, there weren't that many people that actually worked at that side of their life. And I wondered, do I not need to work out anymore, or is this even important? Yeah. Is this even a valuable thing? There's a lot of potlucks, and I'm like, is this just like what it is? And it took me a little while, and I would say for a long time I got pretty careless with my health. I kind of let some of that go. As I studied the scriptures more and more about some of the stuff we talked about, like our body's a temple, and understanding really the design that God's put in us, I'm like, I probably need to throw some effort at this. Now, I have a pretty extreme personality, so I would say I tend to run back and forth between the extremes a lot. And so I'll get really excited and get consumed by the new whatever that just came out, right? So when P90X came out, I was all in, and I'm going to get back in shape, and da-da-da-da. And then, inevitably, I'll either fade away from that trend or get hurt, and then I get careless, and then it ends up being a fight to get back into the middle. Yeah. And so in reality, it ends up keeping me overall in probably an okay place, but I tend to fight back and forth quite a bit. And this conversation was super helpful for me to see, man, my body is the Lord's.
Yeah.
And I want it to be useful. And I want to be able to play basketball with my kids and their friends. And, I want to be able to build relationships through the use of my body over time, if the Lord will allow that.
Yep.
And it's not, I got to recognize that's not always the case. We can't always, it's not guaranteed that we're going to have health and be able to use our bodies over a long period of time.
Yeah. I know that that's something, just staying active on some level, because that back and forth thing for me, because for me it's always been on the, maybe not the super buff in shape fitness thing, but it's always been do I need to lose a few pounds? I played college football, big guy kind of stuff, but I just started looking at everything as a gift, and I don't have the balance yet either. I'm not in the shape I want to be, but even today I'm I could ask someone to plow my driveway, or I could get a snowblower and do it, or I could realize this is a God-given gift to go get an hour and 15 minutes of exercise. That's how I've chosen to look at it the last few years, and I like it. And it's a easy, no-brainer way I have to get physically active, and I can usually listen to something on the way, and it ends up being this win-win-win. And it's just realizing that God's doing that stuff on purpose, because shoveling snow, pain in the tail, but it might be in the long run one of those ways that God's saying, I just want to keep your body in check.
I love that.
For when you get older, So
just a couple simple decisions, right, to stay active. And it's not the kind of thing where we need to be a certain weight or certain size or certain shape. I think it's about having our bodies be functional so that we can be useful to other people. You know?
That's fun.
It's huge.
Now, you also kind of opened up this whole other category that a lot of people do struggle with, right? There's a sickness, an illness, a chronic condition, something in their life that it ends up sucking in a lot of bandwidth one way or the other. And the whole conversation, how do you deal with that? Ryan, I know not that long ago, you had a bout of meningitis.
Oh, yeah.
And it got you good for a while.
Yeah.
When you were in that season, what were some of the ways that God kind of redeemed that for you?
Yeah, and I will say this too. Getting meningitis caused me to make a decision to get more sleep, right? Because I think in part, I was running too much, like running too hard in life and not resting. So since then, I'm like, man, I have to get like a solid amount of sleep, right, on a regular basis, because burn the candle at both ends. But God has used significant sickness, illness in my life 2 times. One was in mono. I had mono for a long time. And then another was in meningitis, and God called me into ministry through being sick with mono. That's like why I'm here.
Wow.
And in meningitis, I feel like God really push reset in my heart and mind on some deep themes that he wanted to work into my life. Gratitude, joy, just like a recognition of where God has me. And at least for me, I'm not always awesome at stopping and resting. And some of us can relate to that, and so it's God kind of made me sit down. I think he does that sometimes in illness, and he uniquely has our attention, and that was certainly true in my life. And I remember thinking, wow, Lord, like, will my brain work the same way?
Yeah.
Will I have a different path in life? There's a couple weeks in there where we didn't know for sure if I was going to have the full functional use of my mind. And it was a good gut check for me to say, all right, Lord, am I still like okay with wherever you want to put me? I might be doing something totally different, And it was a good kind of moment between me and God to say, do I still trust you with my life and my health and my provision and all that God's going to do?
Yeah. It's amazing how God does that internal work in us through those times, but then there are so many ways, too, that he'll use that externally, sometimes as a teaching moment, like here we are, how much long later, using it as an example on what God can do in your life. And then sometimes use it like evangelistically or to just get other people's attention through this too. I was just talking with someone today actually about their daughter, and when they were real young had a serious health condition with their daughter. And the short version of their story is they can almost guarantee they would never have given God a second thought if it weren't for the fact that their daughter was going through this and they just didn't know where to turn. They turned to the church and recently have given their lives to Christ and recently got baptized. But it all started with, what do we do? Our daughter is going through all this stuff. And so God will use those, if you're the person suffering through it, just be praying about, of course, God, do something to change the situation, the recognition that you have of your dependency on him, but then God use it, redeem it. If this story can somehow change someone's life, again, that little girl, and she's fine now by the grace of God, but her parents' lives and probably hers now forever will be changed simply because she went through a ridiculously hard health season. So
that's intense, isn't it?
It's intense, and then you end up loving the other side of it.
Yep.
And that's where that trust, I think, in God comes from, right? It's just he knows how he's working it together for good.
Yeah. When you're in it, when it first happens, it's
so hard.
It so envelops you,
Yeah.
and all your attention, and working through the emotional kind of scope of the whole thing. Yeah. But at the other side of it, it can really be amazing to see what God will do with really horrible circumstances.
And I think that in your story with meningitis and my story with this little girl, neither of us are trying to minimize the emotion and the strain on someone. Like if you're really boundless, like, oh, they're just making it sound like it's nothing. Like, no, it's something.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah.
But God can really use it in multiple ways. So fun. Well, thanks for taking us through this. It's a thing that we're all struggling with on one way or another, whether we realize it or not. Something that certainly God has opinions about, wants to help us with and guide us in. And so thanks for doing that. This has been the Weekend Extra, and we'll catch you guys next week.